It's time to delve a little more into the mysteries of SVGs now. So if you remember from an earlier tutorial, when I tried to bring in a non-SVG image, so for instance this little line art of a house, VideoScribe tries to understand it and convert it to a line drawing. So the one we looked at before was just simply a way to sort of scrub over and make it look like you're drawing an image. But then you get this, which is might as well be other software, so not ideal. So what we would do in this case is go into Illustrator, and if you've used Illustrator before, you probably know about the Live Trace tool, and there's probably something similar in Inkscape, although I'm not sure. So the Live Trace tool tries to interpret sort of a solid image and then convert it into a series of lines and shapes. So I'm just going to go up to a simple trace here, so I'm not going to give a tutorial on this, but basically it allows me to sort of create that breakdown. And then I'm going to expand it. So then you see I have a grouping here, and I can ungroup, and then I get a series of images. So if you know what's coming next, you'll just have to wait, but I want to show you that at this point you think, oh great, I've now got a line image. So I'm going to save it, and then switch over to VideoScribe, and I'm just going to update this image. And there's my SVG file. And let's look at the preview. It doesn't seem to do anything. So it hasn't actually interpreted the lines yet. So if I go back to Illustrator, you'll notice over here I have a series of compound paths. So if I select one of the compound paths, let's say one of the bigger ones, like your windows, I can release the compound path, but then it creates a series of shapes, and I have to then go back in and select these. And again, I'm not going to go into detail about what this is. I can change the color of this to clear. I can make this have a line. Let's go over here so you can see it. I make it a black line maybe. So there's a lot of things I have to do here, so it's hard to see. I'm going to change that to clear as well. So now if I save it again and go back into VideoScribe and try to update it, we'll see what happens. So we get a little bit of drawing, and the rest of it is flat. So you could deconstruct it in Illustrator and go back and forth and try to do it, but you'll notice also the quality of the line here is not completely straight. And if I actually click on what I think is a line, and I release the compound path, again I've got a series of filled shapes. So this is a filled shape with no line. So if I were to delete that, for instance, then I end up with an outline of a house, and so it's not really ideal. So I'm going to show you what I've done with other objects. What I wanted to be able to do in VideoScribe was create this image of these Victorian houses, and I wanted it to draw the houses. So I sourced the object I just did a Google search for it, and then when I went back into Illustrator, here's the image. If I were to bring it in right now, and we saw it before in VideoScribe, it would just try to draw it with a squiggly line. But what I can do is I can add a second layer, lock down the first layer, use the pen tool, and start to draw. So I'm doing a very rough drawing, obviously. So there's my first shape. I then might go over here and draw something else. So obviously I'm not following the lines that I'm supposed to be tracing, but you get the idea. If I hide this layer, this is what you'd end up with. So what I would do at that point is I would delete the layer once I've done the tracing, and then save it as an SVG. So when I go back into VideoScribe, this is what you would end up with. So it takes a little bit of time, but the product I think is much better, and you get a more realistic or authentic drawing experience. There is a third option, which I actually find I use more and more, which is tracing an object and using Adobe Illustrator layers to sort of reveal the object underneath. So the first thing I show here is I have that little line drawing of the house, and I've locked the layer down and I've created a second layer. I'm now going to use just the pen tool, just because I'm not a very good straight line drawer. I'm just simply going to draw a thick line to cover the house. So I haven't been that precise, but I've covered everything. So then the trick here now is to select everything that's on that layer and to change the opacity to 0. Okay, when I save it as Houseline Art SVG, it's really important to make sure that you embed the image underneath. Otherwise, it's just going to bring any lines that you've drawn. So you need to make sure the image is embedded, so it comes along with. So now if I bring it into VideoScribe, I'll just update this. It looks like a solid object, but now watch when I play it. It's going to reveal what's underneath. So it's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job, especially if you speed up the animation a little bit so you don't see the little bits of lines that have been revealed too soon. You can take a line drawing and again go back into Illustrator, create a second layer, draw and trace over it. And I'm just going to show that again, that if I change the opacity of this to 100, it's just big lines that obscure everything. Change that opacity back to 0 before you save. Make sure you keep the other layer, save as, and don't forget when you do the SVG that you want to embed your other image. And that's how you can create a line drawing by using a JPEG or a PNG and basically trace over top of it.